Game. It seems in the wash-up, people have decided it was almost a battle between the coaches rather than between the teams.
You know, I love the comments we just heard Chris Scott on AFL 360. He said, look, the coaches get a lot of the raps, but he said, you can put in all the tactics you like, but if the players don't implement them... I mean, we call coaches geniuses, and we're also the first to hop on their case when we say, I had a bad night in the box. But it's only a bad night or a good night because the tactics that you employed were actually executed properly by the players. And, for instance, that move to have Dangerfield forward, the fact that he kicks a couple of early goals and kicks their first goal, gets them off and going, it makes all the difference. And then everyone gets a lift, everyone gets belief from that, don't they?
Yeah, if they're getting belted in the midfield and the ball's going the other way, I'm pretty sure...
Everyone says, what are you doing?
Chris Scott's pulling the trigger early and getting Dangerfield back into the midfield. I liked the matchups in the midfield for mine, King. I liked how Scotty's boys went out and attacked the Sydney players. You know, blitzers who played on Kennedy. I thought Joel Selwood put a fair bit of work into Luke Parker. It's gone a little bit unnoticed. And, of course, Scott Selwood put a fair bit of work into that third midfielder, and Zach Smith was magnificent. So I like the hunting mentality of them.
You could see the tactics. It's not very often you can see on a television screen what the coach is trying to put in place, but you could see, and we'll show it later on, the Geelong midfielders trying to get forward. You could see that. You could see them trying to make the game bigger, which we'll show later, Jason. A
number of people critical of John Longmire, but let me ask you a question, Gerard. I'm not sure they had a winner on the night, the Sydney Swans. So as that game unfolds, what options does he have? You can try a lot of things, but if they're not working and the players aren't implementing them,
let's explore that a bit. But before we do, after the match, Dermot Brereton had this to say about John Longmire.
The one thing I say about John Longmire, when you go into a game, if you're an opposition coach, you know what he's going to do. Yeah. And he actually says, hey, no secrets here with the Swans. This is what we do. You've just got to be better than to beat me. But it gives the opposition a chance to plan against him, knowing that he's not going to react to that, what we put out there. He's a straight up and down, morally sound coach, but he doesn't throw curveballs at you.
And he doesn't in many ways. Some people think it's a strength and others think it's a weakness. But to me, I was at the game and I reckon... I was sitting with Scotty Clayton of the Gold Coast Suns and looking at various players, and you could see in the first 5 minutes the Swans weren't on for whatever reason. They were fumbling, they were bumbling, there were handballs going to the wrong players, and whatever it is, and it's such a mystery what creates a playing group good enough to get through to a grand final. No one expects the amount of mistakes, just basic, simple mistakes that the Swans implemented on the night from really good players.
So, Kingy, you're watching this. Put yourself in John Longmire's shoes. You're sitting in the coach's box watching all your good players struggle. What can you do?
Well, I think he's received some unfair criticism. I think the fact that he had Reid behind the ball was they were getting belted at clearances. I think that he was putting a player where he thought the ball was likely to go. And they had to try and win the ball back on counter-attack because they couldn't win it at the source. So I think the criticism has been unfair. Of course you're going to trust Kennedy and Parker and Jack and McVeigh because they've taken you to success in the past and they've been able to correct a game that's sliding. So I think he's got enormous trust in his players. But let's not forget, he's got a 70% win-loss record. They've made the second week of the finals every year for the best part of a decade.
It just proves
I think it's unfair.
It proves even more that finals footy, especially when the talent levels are very similar, it's all about the intangibles, isn't it? We all know, we've all been there, where finals can get the best of you. Some days you feel... flat as a tack. And Sydney's been redlining all year. They were zipping six. They've been up in the red line zone for the whole year. They're going to eventually have a flat game. And finals can do that. The pressure of finals can grab a hold of you. And I thought Longmire tried some things. At half-time, he threw Parker forward. You know, I think Rampy was the right matchup for Dangerfield, wasn't it?
And that went horribly wrong as well from the start.
Yeah, like we all would have said, you're playing Rampy on Dangerfield. So I'm not sure he can be criticised for some of those matchups.
Well, going in, though, there was no doubt that Chris Scott tried some different things, different matchups, and almost to a box that he needed to tick, he got them all right.
You love the Blitzarves matchup on Kennedy, particularly at stoppages, Gerard. You just think his reach was significant?
It was as if Cameron Lincoln turned up, David, and I saw him just get the lingy arms around, but then he also put the big arm in, and they actually played the Swans like the Swans have played all season. They were the best ball controllers inside. They're getting it in and out very quickly, a couple of scrubber kicks, and I mean, they didn't have any impact from Dangerfield because he was playing the goal square. And Joel Selwood, he was more of a negating player than anything else and really didn't get much of the football.
His best game for some time, Jason. 19 disposals and a goal. And often his run created holes for other players. Sometimes that unrewarded run is often not seen.
Yeah, look, I just want to make a point quickly on that footage. You'll never win a final when Zach Jones does not put his body on the line like that. You have to tell you, it has to be 100% effort. I like Zach Jones as a player, but the body has to be fully committed if you're going to make it through to a winning grand final. And that wasn't good enough for that one. That's a bad sign. That was early on.
Just talking about Bledsoe again, we all rave about the fact that he's a brilliant runner and he's a great athlete. That's the most I've ever seen him impose himself physically around stoppages, where he was pushing people out of the way, Kennedy in particular. He was assuming front position. He's got such a long reach and such a strong body. He's perfectly sized to actually play that position.
The previous week, Paddy Dangerfield went to full forward, I think, midway through the second quarter, but the ball wasn't going down there, so he had to come back. But the MCG lit up, David, when Paddy Dangerfield lined up at the opening bounce in the goal square.
Look, I'd love Chris to be honest with us. He's not going to be. I want to know whether they warehoused this move from back against the Hawthorn game where he was injured and went forward and turned the game on its head. They used it the next couple of weeks against Adelaide and Carlton. I wonder whether they thought, you know what, let's keep that for a big game. Let's keep that for the pointy end of the year, because 7 scoring shots in the first half got them off to a flyer, built the belief in the group.
Yep.
I don't think I've seen a midfielder go forward since Darren Jarman and have such an impact.
No, it was a pivotal move, but only made pivotal because the other midfielders for Geelong did an exceptional job.
Yeah, I thought the week before Menengola playing as a high forward got lost, had a poor game. Dangerfield going forward allowed Menengola to be a full-timer, and collectively they work some magic in various clearances.
Well, we've had a good discussion about this, Jason. Yep. We'll just paint the picture first and show the clip. The boys showed this in AFL 360, but we just want to have a closer look at it if we can. It starts at a stoppage just forward of centre for the Geelong Football Club. You've got Heaney versus Menengola, and Menengola is a threat. There's no doubt that the mindset or the talk in the group was get forward, challenge the Sydney Swans midfielders to defend. Kennedy half goes with him here, and then he rolls off. Heaney rolls back, and you can see 2 Swans about 40 from goal. They assume a defensive position to guard the leading lanes. Lang comes back and puts a block on, provides a screen for Dangerfield, which attracts some heat, and 2 clear Geelong players close to goal. You don't see that against Sydney, but it was perfectly orchestrated by the Geelong charge forward, if you like.
Lack of communication amongst the Sydney defenders. Like, you set it up perfectly. They cut off the leading lanes. They filled their roles perfectly, but then there needed to be further communication to actually get some numbers back, because Dangerfield had drawn so many players when he let up.
That's where I think the coaching comes into it, because they would have known that was coming.
Yep.
Geelong would have known that this is probably what they're likely to do. That high ball that normally goes in is normally rampy in the goal square. The mismatch of the smaller full forward caused all sorts of chaos for their back six.
Just shows the aura of the great players, doesn't it? The aura of Dangerfield, you can plan for it as much as you like, but when you get put in that scenario and Dangerfield runs past you, you automatically get drawn to it. And, you know, these blokes, have played with greats or been greats themselves and they've seen it.
It was great vision, though, from behind the goals, because looking at it, I thought Isaac Heaney should have gone with Menengola. And I can understand and accept your point. He's gone back and blocked the leading lane. But I just thought it also showed a lack of being 100% switched on, because even though he's got a role, when he still looks around and sees Menengola there, surely he's got to go.
Oh, I think, well, this is a good debate. This is why it cost us 20 minutes this morning, Jason. Does the one-on-one matchup override the role? And I think the structure comes first. His job is to create the high ball in, and then it's Grundy and Rampy and the ruckman to get down.
But that only works if they're all there. And I agree with Gerard. He wasn't busy enough in terms of looking around to see what the landscape was, because things had actually changed from what the normal dump kick in was.
You can have your footy, you can have your structural rules, but you've still got to play footy. Eventually, you've got to be fluid with those things. Play footy and go for the footy, or certainly be in the area to spoil.
I think if John would have his time again, and I think this is what Dermot would be referring to, that is when Buddy's 2 teams, time and time again in the first quarter, something has to change. Something has to allow Buddy Franklin to not have to deal with this situation. I don't think he dealt with it that well, personally, but he needed to attack the ball, and they needed to make somebody else accountable for either Henderson or for Harry.
He got frustrated because he wasn't having a great night. Whether he's hampered by that corky, it's hard to say. He didn't impose himself physically. He didn't look like he moved the way that he normally does. But whether it was Taylor, whether it was Henderson, whether it was Tui, whether it was Stewart, they just played superbly as a back six.
They didn't have any clean football either, Sydney going forward, do they? You know, it was certainly clean football for Dangerfield. At the other end, Buddy never got clean supply, and I agree. I think he was hampered by that injury last week.
When you have a look at the tactical side of it, though, Gerard, and we talk about making the ground wider, making the game bigger, if you like, and it's going lateral first. And let's have a look at how Geelong did it. Sydney want to play the game in contest. They want the game to stay in traffic. We've highlighted a little bit here, but the fundamentals are the ball's going across the ground. Kolajasny puts Rowan to the sword with a lateral lead, and you can see Blitzarves challenging Kennedy to go all the way. Those midfielders getting forward. Kolajasny, I don't think I've seen him run this hard, and he's not a player that's been highlighted much or gets a lot of recognition for his play, and that was a fantastic mark at the end of that 100-metre lead. And that creates the overlap, Jason, the mismanaged back six. I mean, there's a Geelong player square at the top of the goal square all by himself. You just don't see that against Sydney.
I love the way they controlled the tempo. So if they got the turnover that worked, they went quick and they tried to punish them on turnover. But if there was a hold-up, that's when they slowed it down, they used their foot skills and they stretched them wide. And it's a big space to defend, the MCG. And they worked the Sydney defenders back and across and all around the ground. I thought they played it really smart, the Geelong players.
Jetta, I can't believe the Franklin talk about whether he's been a good investment going to Sydney.
Seems to be almost a rush to the phone or the typewriter. As soon as the Swans get knocked out in the final, let's talk about the Buddy deal. The Buddy deal, irrespective of a premiership, to me is a great success already. Now, he's going to have to play another 3 or 4 or 5 years to make sure that the average that they're paying him doesn't go blow out. But they've got a record number of memberships. They had a record number of people at the SCG. Buddy Franklin makes people talk about football in Sydney. We're spending $30-odd million out in the West to get people to talk about footy. Buddy's doing it for one.
Yeah.
They made 2 big deals. One that hasn't worked is Tippett.
Well,
that's the one that's hurting.
And he can't control that, can he? Tippett's been injured or hasn't been in good form. Yep. Buddy's gotten them to 2 grand finals, or certainly been a big contributor to that. 2014, he was one of the only Swans players that fired a shot against his old team in Hawthorn. And last year he was injured. He kicked 4 goals that day, 2014. And last year he got injured in the first minute of the game against the Bulldogs and was severely hampered for the rest of the game. So that's all you can do. Just give your side the opportunity.
He has to win a flag to be a succce up there.
Well, he's got to give him the opportunity to win a flag. He's already done that twice in 4 years.
Yeah, but do you
and
think
he's
he
still
has
going
to win
well.
one? Yes or no?
Well, no, because I think a lot of collective things have to come together. I think what he has done for the game, and there's very few that can transcend codes like Buddy has. He's like Lockett, like Barry Hall to a degree. I think if he went 9 years and didn't win a flag but gave him 3 or 4 cracks at it, I would have thought there's a lot of other pieces that haven't fallen into place. He's done more than his job to this date, I would have thought.
In the meantime, I'm going to pop out to a museum, see if I can find a typewriter, some sort of device that Gerard's talking about. I'm not a favour with that, mate.
I could have gone with a quill pen.
Give Mike Sheen a ring.
10 million over 9 years.
What do you think,
I mean,
Joe?
when you factor it in, Andrew Island was actually forecast where the salary cap was going. There's kids going around the country at the present time basically being offered 1.5. One of them, Josh Kelly, has stayed, and we'll talk about that down the track.
I think there's 2 parts to the equation. The philosophy of Sydney was to try and buy some big price recruits that would deliver a premiership. So if they don't win one, from a Sydney philosophical perspective, I think it fails. But has Franklin been value for money? Absolutely. He's played brilliantly, and all the spin-offs off-field and what he's brought to the Sydney Swans have been enormous.
He's not overpaid in real terms. Maybe a month ago, 4 years ago, you would say he was... it's a very absolute top end, but now he's probably an average for a star forward.
Carey was earning that 95, Brandy. I want to have a listen to what Patrick Dangerfield said on SEN on Saturday, because I think we get a fair guide as to what was studied during the week.
I'll give you a bit of an insight. We looked at a clip. It was Sean Burgoyne when Hawthorn played Sydney, and he had that short chip up the ground, which he missed. I think it was the first goal of the game. And then he butted up, followed up, received the ball, and then kicked it from 50. And I had that, as soon as it happened last night, I had that clip in my head because Mitch obviously executed the kick and then followed up his work. And that was the theme for the night.
Best interview in the game right now, Patrick Dangerfield. Have a look at this, Gerard. This is remarkable how similar these 2 plays are. Against the Sydney Swans, it's clearly a method or a plan to get forward, to challenge the Swans midfielders, to be defensively diligent, and if they fail, get it on the scoreboard. It was great pick-up by Paddy, but I've got no doubt that they would have looked at the way or the mechanics that Hawthorn invest against the Swans, and it worked to perfection.
midfielders all pushed hard forward when they had the opportunity.
Definitely, they played with good tempo, didn't they, Joe? So you could definitely tell it was at the front of the mind. When they could control the ball, they did. They just were slow and methodical.
Let's move on to the